Hello all and welcome to another episode of the RV Voice. Today we have a special guest, someone who's also an RV podcaster. She's been doing it a little longer than I have, and she's got a better following than I do, but she's been doing it for a while and she's doing great. And she has lots of fun episodes. And today I actually listened to one of her episodes about RVing at clothing optional campgrounds. It's an awesome episode. It's fun to listen to. It's good to listen to. You need to know if you're going to end up at one of those places, what it's going to be like. But anyway, today we're going to talk about medical issues, handling medical issues, medical problems, all that, anything that deals with medical field while on the road, because things do happen. You need prescriptions, you need a doctor appointment, you need to stop here, do this, that, the other. She knows how to do this stuff because she's been on the road. She also lived on the road for quite some time and traveled a lot. So welcome, Patty Hunt from the RV Life podcast. My buttons aren't working here. Thank you, Patty, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It's exciting. We met about a year ago now, and now you sat right here.
Yes.
Right over here with Todd. And now I have this fancy background. We didn't have it. We didn't have it when you got here. You got here like a week after you got here.
Yes, it was due to come in when we did the episode.
Yeah, it was. And they kicked it back like 2 days, but it is what it is. You guys had a wonderful episode then. And how long have you been in the podcast world?
2.5 years.
Okay, so you got a little bit of time on me, about 1.5 years more. But you also have a lot more experience in the RV life than I do.
Okay. It's 3.5 years on the road, full time.
Really? And then just recently you guys have parked it?
Yep, about a year ago. We had to get off the road, yep.
Yeah. And so this episode, like I said before, we're talking about handling medical problems, issues, whatever it may be, loading up prescriptions, doctor's offices. You have a little bit of experience about that due to your husband's ailments or whatever, right?
Correct. So he was dealing with medical issues while we were on the road, and then last year had significant medical issues, and that's what took us off the road. And me back into a house for now. Well,
let's tell people about how it all works. I'm sorry you're going through that because you guys were living a wonderful life. It sounds like you're having a lot of fun on the road. You had a lot of wonderful experiences and really enjoyed the lifestyle. And so much so that you had a podcast about it. Like you had a really good time. So
it was incredible.
Yeah, really was. It sounds like it. So how would you go about, you guys, I'm guessing you had at least a little bit of knowing that there were some medical issues before you guys decided to go on the road?
Well, not really. We decided to go on the road during COVID, and my husband said, let's sell everything, go on the road full time. And I laughed because I had been on the road for 7 days, in an RV for 7 days prior to that. So I had no idea what he was talking about, just no idea about any of it. And because it was during COVID and everything was shut down, after about 2 months, I said, what the heck, and just went for it. And I will be honest, I was not prepared. I did not do enough research. We learned as we went along, everything worked out. But I do hope that, people will be more prepared for those, especially emergencies like medical emergencies. It is good to have some clue.
Yeah. So, I'm guessing, as you guys went on, it sounds like from what we talked before, it sounds like it was transitioning out of it, right? You had to transition through that with your husband getting some sickness or just not having great health at the point. So how would you tell somebody do's, don'ts before you leave home, how to prepare properly for the road when you do have, say, medical issues?
So there's a couple things that I wish I had done, some things that I did right. First of all, whether you're going to be on the road part-time or full-time, knowing what your health insurance. So if you have health insurance and you're part-time, you want to know what your health insurance is going to cover. I keep saying, don't go on Facebook and Google this and have all these people answer, how a medical health insurance company is going to cover something, because they are so different. Every company is different. The policies are different. you contact your own insurance company and say, listen, I'm going to be on the road. What will be covered or not covered? If you're full-time, my understanding, and I am certainly not an expert because navigating the health insurance field is difficult at best. Trying to read your policy is difficult at best. But my understanding is being full-time on the road, it's a great idea to find an insurance company that covers that, because a lot of times your insurance is covered by state. So the insurance company you have, I live in Pennsylvania, it covers Pennsylvania. If you go out of state and have an emergency, what the insurance company deems an emergency, they'll cover certain things. When you're full-time, having insurance that will cover you being full-time. Now, I dealt with a company and it's called RVers Insurance, and I was going through the process with them as to the best insurance policy for Dan and I. And our insurance policies that we were looking at would have been different because we have two different medical health needs. So really finding people that could lead you through that is the best way, while being on the road. You can be on the road, have a medical emergency, go to a hospital and be slammed with a huge medical bill that the insurance company isn't paying.
Interesting. I didn't know that. I mean, I always see like Blue Cross of Idaho, Blue Cross of Nebraska. When I come from Nebraska, we had Blue Cross there, and it was Blue Cross of Nebraska. Now out here is Blue Cross of Idaho, living in Boise. And I didn't know that would be like you're bound to that state for those reasons. I did not know that. So that's a good tip. So RVers Insurance, that kind of help you like expand your knowledge for one, because it's like reading, Mandarin when you're looking at an insurance policy or whatever thing it covers, because it's hard to understand. Right. It doesn't like in this case, yes, that case, no. Like, how does that make sense? But so RVers Insurance, can you break that down a little more? So
yes, insurance is hard to understand, and there's so much fine print, and nobody's got time to read it all. So RVers Insurance, I contacted a woman who they go out and look at all the different insurance policies and then come back and say, okay, here's different policies. They're called something, and I can't remember what they're called. They're not one specific insurance company. They look at all different policies based on your age, based on your past medical health, whether you're going to travel or not, those kinds of things. The one thing I want to be clear on, if you have insurance in Pennsylvania and you're in Florida and have a medical emergency, go to the emergency room. Like, I don't want anybody to sit and wait to go to an emergency room. I just want that out there. Go to the emergency room and you'll figure it out later. If you're hit with a medical bill, you pay a monthly, to get them paid off. But sometimes people will wait because they're afraid that if they go to the hospital, it's not going to be covered. And then, that could be catastrophic. So absolutely. And a lot of regular insurance policies will cover to some degree medical emergencies out of state, but you should check that. The other part of that is travel insurance. I don't know as much about that, but I know when I travel, I have a friend that handles that, and there is travel insurance. So you want to check on that as well. And again, it's different if you're full-time or you're part-time, but travel insurance could be another thing that you want to look into having.
Yeah. So it sounds like what you're kind of saying is like, there's almost like a fine line between, say I fly to Florida from here. I know I'm only there for a week, and God forbid I slice my leg open at the beach. It doesn't matter. It could be a tooth. It could be a rock. It could be a tin can that someone left there. It happens. But it sounds like they take that into consideration. They should. Most insurance companies, I'm guessing they do. Not saying they do, so don't take that, whoever's listening. But versus you being full-time on the road, not in your home state, they see that as a different idea, which doesn't really connect in my head. But insurance policies, their whole goal is to keep money in their pocket. I worked in the home improvement or home remodeling for, storm chasing. That's what I did. I did storm remodeling for roofing and siding and exteriors. And all they wanted to do, the insurance companies did not want to pay anything to restore your home. Their whole goal is to keep money in their pockets, gain interest on what they have in the bank. That's how it works. The word, their pool of money. Obviously, we want to keep people healthy, sort of. That's a different conversation for another day. But we want to make sure that you, as full-time RVers, are healthy. So this is why we're breaking this down and we're talking to an expert like Patty, because she's been through this stuff. So interesting. They RVers Insurance. They'll kind of walk you through and kind of get you set up properly for full-time RVing. Sounds like.
Yes, they have been amazing. I've talked to people there, and they are just patient and, understand that people don't necessarily understand how to navigate the process. So they were incredible. They were incredibly helpful when I called them and tried to figure out, again, the best insurance for us given our situation.
Perfect. Do you know anything about having keeping your medical records or anything with you while you're on the road? Do you have to do that?
That was another big thing. So we talked before this episode. I had a guy on the show, May 21st, an episode on my podcast that talked about medical emergencies. His name's Bob Batchelor, and his company is Flying Angels, and he's been in the medical field for over 30 years. And so emergency medicine, he's been in ICU. He's got a lot of letters after his name. And we had to sit down talking about what people need to be prepared while on the road. And the one big thing he was talking about, and a couple things that I didn't know, even though I had been through some medical issues with my husband, Dan, on the road, but is having that folder. And in the folder should be all of your information, your medical history, doctors' names, medicines, your insurance. He listed a whole lot of things that should be in this folder so that when you have an emergency, it's there. Years ago, before this last incident with Dan, he had gotten COVID and was very in bad shape. And I was calling 911. Well, when you're calling 911, it's hard to remember your name, let alone once you get to the hospital and all the information, the medications you take. That's important to make sure you have all of the medications and update it. So whether you put it in a actual paper folder or file or you do it digitally, all of that information needs to be there. Doctors, some people have all different types of doctors. They have their main doctor and their cardiologist and this doctor and that doctor. So all that information in one place is going to be really helpful, especially in a medical emergency. One of the first things they want to know is what medicines the person's on. And that's hard to remember. And then the other thing that I highly suggest, having had to call 911, when you get into a campground, making sure you have the name and address of the campground. Again, in an emergency, it's hard to remember your own name. So your name, address of the campground, the emergency phone number for that campground, because when you call 911, they need to be able to get in the gate if there's a gate, and they need somebody that's going to lead them to your site, because campgrounds are big. You call 911, they're going to get that ambulance to that campground, but may not be able to get to your site. So it's important that you have that. I recommend a whiteboard, a wipe-off board. You go into campground, you get set up, you write all this down, and I highly recommend everybody traveling with you knows where that information is. And that could be, a young kid. My 8-year-old grandson can make a phone call. Everybody should know where that information is, because that's going to be the big thing in those emergency situations.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't think about all that. That's a good lick of advice right there. Especially when you said like some of these campgrounds, I mean, they get 500 sites deep. You can get lost in those things real quick. I mean, I got lost in like 200s. I'm back home. They're easy. And I know them well, and I still get lost.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So do you know of any apps or tools like digitally that would do that? I know there's probably like, I'm sure like Health Joy is one of them that we use here. I don't know if that has anything more than like telehealth and like, recent records, but like deep records, do you know anything besides making your own Excel spreadsheets?
And I don't do Excel spreadsheets. I like to keep it nice and simple. So it could just be a doc that, is either on your phone, your computer. Mine are Apple, so they talk to each other. I don't, there are ways to have it on your phone at all times. The thing is, the way I understand it from the conversation I had with Bob, is how you send those records, and with HIPAA rules, I don't know if it applies. So I don't know of any apps. I know that all of Dan's, and I've dealt with Dan's medical records, I could access those records from the hospital that he was at. They all have, most of them have online portals now. The problem is one hospital doesn't talk to another. So the different hospital systems don't talk to each other. So it's really best to have the basics downloaded. You don't need I don't believe you need every lab report and every medical, everything, but having those medicines updated. And again, you could just go in and make a note sheet in your phone, or again, he recommends a printed folder. So you're handing it over and somebody has it in front of them. So those are, what I recommend. I don't know of apps that would be great. Is there going to be a problem with the person opening the app once you get there? So that's not something I'm as familiar with. I don't think we have to make it complicated. I don't think it.
No. Yeah, just keep the main hitters. Like, you should know these things about, with your medical records and all that. Interesting. So question next would be like, so prescriptions are another thing that are kind of like within that mix. Say they typically load you up for 30 to 60 days, sometimes 90 days. But like, if you're on the road living full time, you're probably not going to be in Pennsylvania where you started from. You're probably going to be in California, Arizona. So like, if you end up in that situation, how do you go about refilling prescriptions remotely? Do you have certain pharmacies, mail order services? How does that look?
So, and what I'm going to say is so different based on the state, the medicine, the type of medicine you're getting, the insurance companies. There's so much around this. I just saw a friend of mine is a family that's on the road. Her son needs medication. They used to be able to get 30 days, 90 days at a time. So 3 months at a time. The insurance company just changed that to 30 days. So it makes it very difficult for her to travel. This medication needs to be refrigerated, so it can't be sitting in a mailbox somewhere. From what I understand from what she said, she was having somebody pick up the medicine and mail it wherever she was. Supposedly that's illegal. So I'm saying all this because to caution people that it really depends on the medication. Do people do it? Yes. Is it doable? Absolutely. How you navigate that is going to be based on the medicine you need, your insurance. There are mail service medications, so there absolutely are, where you could order your medicine and it's sent to you. And a lot of times you can get 3 months supply. So that's really working through your doctors and the insurance. There are companies out there. I don't have any off the top of my head that do mail service medical, but it's doable. It's possible.
Yeah, I know that, I've talked to several families within the influencer realm that have diabetes. Someone in the family has type 1 or whatever it may be. They need to have insulin. That has to be cool, right? It has to be a decent temperature. It can't be shipped and can't get super hot. And they've said that that's been a struggle for them, whether they have to go back, whatever it is, because you can only get so much of that as well. Now, I also know a family from back where I'm from actually created like the first online pharmacy. They've done very well. But anyway,
I'm sure they have.
Yeah, they did. They're doing okay. But anyway, I don't know how that plays into this. Personally, I didn't look too much into it, but I mean, there's got to be some mail order pharmaceuticals. Like there's probably some that need more doctor notation or whatever it is, a doctor sign off. And there's probably, if you're a small town, I know that like if you have a great relation with your doctor and they know you very well, they help pull some strings or whatever it is. Like, hey, we'll get it taken care of. We'll send it to XYZ Walgreens. Just stop there and make it happen. That's a pointer from my side of things. If you have someone that you're close with as your family doctor. Now, if you're in a giant city, you might not be as close with your family doctor, but maybe. So how did you go about it? Did you ever have to refill on the road?
So neither of us were actually on medicine. We took a lot of supplements, which were all mail order type supplements. Yeah. We did not have a consistent medicine. Now, once Dan became ill last year, he started on medicine, which again made it more complicated, but we weren't on the road to know how we were going to be able to navigate that. So I did not specifically have to navigate that. He had gotten ill and things started going downhill, and we've realized very quickly I wanted to be back in Pennsylvania with friends and family. Once we got back here, he went into the hospital, and from there he never left. So he went into the hospital and is now in a nursing home, for people who don't know, and on a lot of medication. But months before that, I knew that we probably weren't going to be able to navigate being on the road because of the medical problems. I think we would have been able to work out getting the medications. Sometimes they were honestly sent to family, and that's the idea, is to then have family send it. Again, people need to look at, because somebody brought up online, I don't know how true it is, that may not be legal. Is somebody looking at that? How big a problem is that? But I just saw it. So that's something to think about. So for us, luckily, all of our supplements, all of the sort of things that took care of our health were bought online.
Interesting. Yeah. I didn't think, you wouldn't think if you just like, hey, can you go pick this up for me and then send it to me? You wouldn't think that'd be a big deal, but apparently it can be, especially if it's, I guess it's doctor signature, sign off, narcotic, maybe,
Our narcotic, definitely. And that's why I said, depending on the medicine, our narcotic, definitely, you're going to a little more conservative.
You can't just be sending that out.
Yes. So you want to be a little cautious.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, there's, like we said, diabetes is one of those things that is kind of it's a situation where, like, okay, getting insulin, it has to stay at a certain temperature, it's glass bottles or whatever, and maybe how you guys go about it. It's not exactly the easiest way to go about it. Now, there are other people I know, type 1 detour. Have you ever heard of them? They have, that's literally what they're called. That's their type 1 detour because they're diabetic, or I think it's just him is diabetic. But anyway, he has to go deal with that. And then there's another family where the kid's diabetic. Can't remember who that is, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. Yes. I know who you're talking about. I'm not sure. Again, they put it out there. So it's actually Wild Thorn Bailey's. And the only reason I'm saying it is because they themselves put it out there. I don't like to give other people's information out. I don't know if they've been a guest on the podcast, but that was the concern, is getting that, insulin that comes in glass bottles and needs to be kept at a certain temperature. And it's not like something you could say, oh, I ran out, no big deal. No, it's life or death.
No, you need it.
You need it, and you need it now, and you need it to be stable. I believe that, again, are there ways? I would imagine there are ways. They had been on the road for 6 years. They've been on the road for 6 years, so they found a way to do it. Are insurance companies or doctors changing what they're doing and how they're doing it? That possibly. So really have to check on your medicines. Talk to your doctor, I think, is a great way to do that. And, to your point, medical appointments while on the road, dealing with doctors while on the road. We found a doctor that did telehealth. So before Dan was having big medical issues, telehealth is a great way to handle a lot of medical appointments or your basic medical appointment on the road. Then if we had a cold or an infection or something, that doctor can order, okay, I've got an ear infection, an antibiotic or something. And that can be sent out of state.
Yeah.
Not
so
narcotic.
Speaking on that, because they kind of go hand in hand, ordering prescriptions and doctor's appointments and telehealth. How do you, I have Health Joy, I believe, with Bish's, and that they have you can go on there, go on this app, do whatever you need to do, like sign up, hey, I'll see you in an hour or two, like that. You can pick the one time and the doctor calls you on telehealth for whatever appointment, say I got a strep throat or whatever, I'm wheezing a little bit. Is that how you went about doctor's appointments when you guys were living on the road? Completely?
Yes. Yeah.
You didn't have to never stopped in anywhere?
Well, not completely. So one of the things we did come back to Pennsylvania, which is technically our home base. We came back to Pennsylvania to do certain appointments. That's how it was handled. And then anything else was handled on telehealth. So for my doctor, he wants to be able to see you once a year, depending on the situation. So for Dan, let's see him once a year. Let's make sure everything's going well. And again, as you age and if you have other medical conditions, it's going to be different for different people. But we found a doctor that, we would go in and check in with him. He got to know us. And then I could call and do a telehealth appointment and say, hey, I'm having this issue and I'm in Florida right now, and he could send me medicine. The other thing too that we did at times was to go to a walk-in type place. That worked very well, like a quick, whatever they're called. And that works really well. I had a cough or I had an ear infection or something like that. You could easily go into one of those places. Again, whether or not your insurance is going to cover that, it depends. It really depends. Yeah. But sometimes it's, it costs $125, $150. It could cost more than that. So you want to double check that. But sometimes that was just the easiest way to handle something that couldn't be handled on a telehealth appointment. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. And you had a portal, I'm guessing, through your doctor back home for the telehealth.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
So look into that. Whoever's listening, look into that if you have issues that you want to take care of on the road, because a lot of people do offer that now, telehealth. Speaking of telehealth, real quick, we kind of got a telehealth thing ourselves here at Bish's RV called RV Fix. Patty's heard of it, but anyway, yes, you can talk to a master RV technician today about your issue if you need to, and you can use this discount for quite a bit off. Anyway,
that's a 60% off. I'm getting ready to post a video I did of when I was there and did an RV Fix video. I went through the whole tour. That's at 60% off, right? I want to make sure
it did. And by the time this comes out, it's probably going to be incorrect. So I do apologize. I need to edit this thing, but it is an RV Fix discount. I'm going to take. Yeah, that's right. Thank you for pointing that out. I need to.
No problem. I will not post that.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, yes, there is a discount here. It will be in the description. Don't use this one.
Okay.
It just, I haven't changed it.
Okay.
But yes, you can talk to an RV technician on this. It is kind of like a telehealth. It's a FaceTime call, the site call. And if you can't get it fixed, 40-50% of the time, we're fixing it on the first phone call with you. So you don't have to deal with the RV service bay at all, or any RV service shop. If we can't do that, we can get warranty approval and parts ordered within 2 hours, send them to you, get back on the phone with you, help you fix the problem, or send a mobile RV technician out to you, or you stop by Bish's and we get it done for you. All while keeping your RV. That's the whole point of having an RV. Keep it in your hands, not the shop. So there's my spiel on that. We can move on. It just seemed like it fell in there. Anyway, so the doctor's telehealth, you guys probably have telehealth, telemedicine, whoever it may be. Check your portal, talk with your doctor. There's a good chance you have that. So that's one way to deal with medical appointments while on the road. Now, we did mention this earlier a little bit, having a plan when emergencies do happen. So managing emergencies while on the road is this topic. Have you had to deal with any emergencies while on the road, or was that kind of like you just transitioning, you could see health declining, or how'd that work for you?
I don't even think we were a year out, and Dan was ill. And I'm not, bed and going to doctors. I am going to say it. I wasn't going to. And he kept saying, I'll be okay. I'll be okay. Until he was so bad that I had to call an ambulance. So yes, that's where I learned that when you're calling an ambulance, and it takes a lot for me to dial 911, you have, and sometimes knowing when the right time to call an ambulance or put the put the person in a car and drive them. This was definitely an ambulance moment. And again, in a campground that had probably 150 sites, but knowing all of that information, the name of the campground, the address, where our site was, who to call in the campground so emergency people can get into the campground. And then what they did is they had a golf cart that led the ambulance to the RV, because it wasn't a situation where we wanted to waste a whole lot of time. So yes, have definitely dealt with the emergency situations.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier when we talked about it at first, having a plan ahead for that situation. Now, it's not always fun to say, you said a whiteboard, right? Or even just a notepad somewhere near the door or wherever you're going to keep it, that where it's at, junk drawer, even wherever, somewhere where to grab this thing. Say, this is where we're at. This is how you get it. This is who you talk to. It's a good thing to be, you don't really know when an emergency is going to happen. So you got to kind of plan ahead and really think about these things, because life happens. And that's one of those things that can happen anytime to anybody. Doesn't matter age, doesn't matter where you're at. You can get a bee sting and not even know that you're allergic to that bee. It happens. So having a real good plan out beforehand would be great. Now, what about, can they GPS?
So,
go ahead.
I guess they could GPS to the campground, but not necessarily to the RV. Now, there may be, to you. And it'd
be kind of share your location in the midst of that.
And how many campgrounds? So again, knowing where you are and these things in place. And I'm sure some people say, well, when you call that emergency number, sometimes at a campground, they don't respond. Emergency will go through the thing that comes down at the gate if they have to. They'd rather have somebody lift that up, but yes, that could be an issue. And the best way is to be able to contact the campground, the emergency people, whoever, and let them know somebody's coming out.
Yeah, that would help out a lot.
Yeah. And as far as having that paper, so like you said, if it's a notepad, that's fine. It's just to have it in the same place every time. A junk drawer is probably not the best place, because you don't want to be fiddling through the junk drawer.
Stuff just flying out of there.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, where are we? What's the address? And you're fiddling. I like putting it on the inside of a cabinet. So on the inside of a cabinet, you could put, like I said, a whiteboard or a piece of paper that you tear off and throw away and put the next piece of paper in. It could also be near where you're going to keep that folder with your information. So everything is in one place. Think about, there's the same reason we practice fire drills in school. We want to know we're going to be prepared when we hear it. It's the same thing. And again, everybody in the RV should know where it is, how to find it. Even a little kid that can't read it should know how to access it for somebody that might need to. I had a friend of mine was there with her 3 really young kids, fell off a chair, and one of the kids had to call 911 and knew how. And so, again, I don't want to make kids paranoid. I don't want us to be paranoid. For the most part, people go out in RV and never have a problem. Being prepared, though, is a great thing in case something happens.
Absolutely. It's a real deal. Like I said, it doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, whatever it may be. I mean, things happen all the time.
And that was one of the things. Yeah, and that was one of the things, because people always say, well, the older population. So the older population, more likely to have a heart attack or a stroke or the type of thing that happened with my husband. The older population, more likely. When I had Bob from Flying Angels on the show, he said, but the younger population gets hurt more often because they think they're invincible. And I just thought that, yeah, that's true. So if you're driving around and you're like, well, that happens to people who are older, and I hear that a lot, or this is important for the older population. No, with his company that he's had for 7 years now, he has flown just probably, I don't want to say as many younger people that are getting hurt on a ski trip and need to be transported, or, all these different things that could potentially happen. So yeah, nobody should be like, well, that's not going to happen to us. We don't have to worry about that. Again, being prepared is what it's all about.
It can happen. It can happen. Be prepared. Be prepared. Patty had a great idea. Don't put it in the junk drawer. Bad idea, Jake. That's just where my mind went. Where's the notepad going to be? Junk drawer.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how my mind works. Why would I make it easier for myself? Why would I do that? Oh, goodness gracious. But tacking on to that, Patty, you did bring up, so let's kind of set the situation, right? You're from PA. Say you're out in Wyoming doing whatever things, it hits the fan. This happens. You got to go run to the ER, whatever it may be. Your travel plans get completely thrown off loop. So much so that you probably need to go home. How does that work? You did mention some company that helps you get home. And then what about, getting the RV back? Say you're not in a drivable situation. How does that all work? And what is your experience with that?
Right. And that's exactly what happened. Dan and I were in Florida. I never drove the RV. He became ill. In this particular situation, he didn't end up in the hospital. But in a lot of cases like these, if he had to go to the hospital. And then I wanted to be back home in Philadelphia to be with family. So there's different ways that could happen. Again, I couldn't drive the RV. How do you navigate that? I always said wherever the RV was home. Well, that's all well and good until my husband got so ill that I really wanted to be, near family. I didn't want to have to deal with the RV thing and him. So a company like my friend's company, Flying Angels, will transport people from anywhere to anywhere, and they do it all over the world. So they could go anywhere in the world, pretty much. And so what's nice about that is if you're in Florida, like had Dan gone to the hospital and then stayed there, they would go down, pick him up and bring him back and take him to another facility, wherever he needed to be taken. What is different about what Flying Angels does, they are not air ambulance. So if you need an air ambulance, it's a different situation. Insurance sometimes pays for it, sometimes doesn't. I don't know all the details of that. I do know it's very expensive. Sometimes a patient can be transported with a highly qualified nurse on a commercial airline. So American Airlines, Delta, a commercial airline that's going to save the people, the patient, the family, a lot of money. And you have that nurse with you. What his company does is handle everything from the time that person calls and says, hey, again, if Dan were in the hospital in Florida, Dan's in the hospital in Florida, I need him transferred to a hospital in Philadelphia. They handle absolutely everything from bedside to bedside. And wow. On that flight, you have a highly trained nurse with you. So if Dan needed oxygen, if he needed, certain things monitored, if he needed medication, they can do that. I have heard stories where a couple, it was an older couple, the woman was very ill. They had a certain insurance. I don't know what it is, nor would I mention an insurance company, but the insurance company said, yes, just get on the plane, booked the flight for them. They got on by themselves. Oh, no, they got to the airport and the flight was canceled. When they called the insurance company said, that is a airline issue, not our issue. And the woman was very ill. So that's where my concern is. And that's where, I'm just passionate about people knowing there are other options. I would not have wanted to get on an airplane by myself with Dan in the condition that he was in. I would not. I can't even imagine what might have happened in that situation. It's only a 2.5-hour flight, but that was very concerning. So there are options. One of the options is sometimes people have to go by air ambulance. That's an option. Some people are well enough and can, fly home on an airline without any, with just somebody being with them. That's fine. So there are a number of options. There are insurance companies out there. I've looked into some of them. I am not an expert. My caution would be to make sure you clearly understand what that insurance company is providing. It's like any insurance company. What exactly are they doing? I know there are companies like Escapees that will, get the RV back. They have some, and again, I didn't totally look into it because I had a friend that if the RV were somewhere, he would come pick it up and drive it back. So I didn't have to worry about that. So there are a lot of companies that will get your RV where you want it. Is it worth it? That's just something you have to figure out. In my case, the RV stayed in Florida. I wasn't as concerned about the RV. It was an older RV. We were planning on selling it anyway because we were upgrading to a new RV, but it ended up staying in Florida, and then I sold it. But, you can, if that's the concern, is getting that RV back to your home destination, there are companies. Escapees being one of them. FMCA is another. I believe they just changed their name, but there are many. And again, there are many companies that say they will cover getting you back home, repatriated, but really look at the details of what that entails, because you want to make sure if you're going to be going back home on an airplane that you have the right person with you, the right care.
Interesting. How long has that Flying Angels been around?
They've been around for over 7 years, I want to say. The guy that owns the company worked with a company prior to that did something, the same type of thing. So he has amazing experience.
It's quite the idea there. I mean, it makes total sense for all sorts of situations, whatever it may be. I mean, you could be just on vacation, something happens. You could be on you could be on a work trip, something happens. I need someone to, just get me back, because you can't, you're working in LA, but you're flying out to New York, like that could be a real issue, getting home, whatever it may be, and then just flying with somebody that knows what they're doing to keep, right, keep you in good health as you fly. That's a big problem, big thing too. And then you said Escapees helps you get back. You can take your RV back.
They have a program. I spoke to somebody about a year or so ago, and they had a program that I believe would get the RV back. I don't know if the program's changed, because there's some things with Escapees that have recently changed. They were one of the companies that will get the RV back.
That one I did not know. I knew they were kind of just like I'm not even sure what Escapees was. I mean, I knew that they had it's kind of basically RVers in general. It basically can do a little bit of everything, but I didn't know that was part of it.
They were actually just bought about a year ago by Harvest Host. Escapees is what people use for their mail service. So like my mail, I use Escapees, so all my mail was sent to a central location, and then I had my mailing address because I travel full time through them. They could scan my mail, they can receive medicine and then send it to me. I could say, okay, they can receive it there. And then when I got to a campground or near a post office, I could say, okay, this is where I need you to send my medicine. So
that helps.
Yeah, and then Escapees does events, which is now part of the Harvest Host, again, bought escapees. And so, yes, so they do all kinds of events. People want to go to the Albuquerque Balloon Fiesta. They have, these planned events they do all year long.
Very nice. Well, that helps with our conversation. I didn't know they could help, get it to where it needs to go. Like you said, that's a good little thing. It sounds like, Patty, you know what you're talking about. You gave us a lot of good tips. The big tip is being ready for any emergency at any time. That's a big tip. Talking to your health professional, whoever may be. Insurance is not an easy thing. RVers Insurance is one of those places that can help you do that or get you the right insurance to get you covered properly for your all-time travels or your full-time travels. I'm sure there's other people out there that do this full-time that have, some other tips. You can follow them. I'm sure they brought it up on their social media pages. But Patty, you said you had another episode recently or not too long ago that had the similar conversation that we're having today. Do you remember which one that was?
It was May 21st, and the title was Medical Emergencies, I think is the way the title starts. But that was May 21st of this year, so just a couple weeks ago.
Perfect. Well, if you want to hear more about that, there's more on that. Is there anything else that we didn't cover today, Patty, that you would want to touch on?
So the one thing I want to say, we're talking about medical emergencies. We're talking about my situation. One of the things I want to say is, if I had it to do all over again, I would. It's well worth the adventure is just amazing, and being prepared's great for the most part. It's just a lot of fun and an incredible experience. Unfortunately, it ended different for me, but for a lot of people, it really is an incredible experience. And I highly recommend people get out. If they don't have an RV, go rent a cabin, but get out there and enjoy life because it is too short. Yeah.
I'm noticing that. I'm only 32 and I'm noticing it every day. It gets faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. Every year it goes faster. I'm like, I remember the other day, I was just drinking beer with my buddies in college, and it's gone. I mean, I barely even talk to those guys anymore. I feel bad, but life happens. You get more busy and time goes faster. It's just kind of part of it. There's not enough time in the day, but that's okay because you just make it worth your while during it if you can. And not everybody does that. But seeing the wonderful lands that we've been blessed to have in lower 48 and, obviously Alaska and Hawaii as well. But we have a lot of cool stuff to see here. We've been blessed with a lot of cool landscapes to check out. So being in an RV, if you don't have one, check out bishes.com. Get one out here. We got awesome prices. Sale price is a sale price at bishes.com. We do not do any fees on top of that. I mean, there's a title and dock fee. Everybody has that, but we don't have dealer prep fees and yada, yada, blah, blah, blah on top of that. You're paying basically the price you see. See, it's $27.99, $27.99. Oh, sorry, $27,999, whatever it may be. You're looking at $28,500 all said and done. And obviously, if you want add-ons, that's on you. But we do not have extra fees on top of that. But Patty, it's been absolutely wonderful talking to you. This is something that I have not a lot of experience in at all. Being prepared. Don't throw it in the junk drawer. That's my terrible advice, but that's where my mind goes. That's how my mind works. Oh, but awesome. Well, Patty, this has been a wonderful experience. Thank you for hopping on because you have the podcast experience and you're a great source of information. So thank you very much. And if you have nothing else, Patty,
I just want to thank you for having me. I really appreciate being on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And everybody out there, give Patty a follow on RV Life Podcast. She's on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Is there anything else that I'm missing?
My new YouTube channel, Inspire Travel with Patty. And there is a full video of the interview I did with Todd Nuttall, the president of Bishes.
Right here. Somewhere in there.
Actually, no, it was the other one. So that's the podcast, YouTube, that one.
Oh, it's on this one?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, everybody give her a follow, and out there, give us a follow too. We'd love to have you. Give us suggestions. We are always here for making more content. It's my life. It's my job. It's what I do now. So give us a follow, and everybody out there, stay tuned for more from the RV Voice.